Imagine this. You walk into a random yard sale on a Saturday morning. You're tired, broke, and not really planning to buy anything. You're just there to pass time, to distract your mind from how heavy life feels. And then you see it. An old wooden desk. Scratched, dusty, forgotten in the corner. The seller says, $20 and it's yours. You think it's just a cheap piece of furniture. You bring it home, clean it, open the drawers, and find something hidden that should not be there. A secret compartment, a sealed envelope, a document that was forgotten for more than 30 years. And that single forgotten piece of paper, quietly waiting inside a $20 desk, is worth more money than you've ever seen in your entire life. This is the incredible story of how one ordinary young man, with no savings, no luck, and no hope, accidentally became a millionaire. His name was Michael Andrews. He was 23 years old. Not a genius, not an entrepreneur, not an investor, just a normal guy trying to survive in a world that felt too expensive for him. He lived in a tiny rented room in an old house. There was barely enough space for a narrow bed, a small wardrobe, and a cheap laptop on top of a shaky cardboard box that pretended to be a table. He worked part-time at a hardware store, the kind of job where you're on your feet all day, smiling at strangers, lifting heavy boxes, and pretending everything is fine, while your bank account is slowly bleeding out. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't stupid. He just felt stuck. Stuck in a cycle where every month was the same. Rent, food, gas bills, and nothing left for dreams. He had ideas. He had things he wanted to do. But ideas don't pay rent. Motivation doesn't fill the fridge. So, most nights he fell asleep with one repeating thought in his head. Maybe one day something will change. Maybe one day I'll get a little bit lucky. He didn't know that one day was much closer than he thought. It started after one of those weeks. You know the kind of week where everything seems to go wrong. A shift at work that ran too long. A rude customer who made him feel small. An unexpected bill that drained what little he had left. On Friday night, he sat on his bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, feeling that familiar tightness in his chest. His room was quiet, but his mind was loud. Is this it? Is this how my life is going to look forever? Wake up, work, worry, sleep, repeat? He knew other people his age were traveling, starting businesses, investing, posting photos of perfect lives on social media. Meanwhile, he was calculating whether he could afford to buy proper food and still pay the electricity bill on time. So on Saturday morning, without any real plan, he decided to go for a long walk. No destination, no goal, just to breathe, to not think about money for a moment, to feel like a human being instead of a walking invoice. The air was cool, the streets quiet, the kind of morning that makes the world look softer than it really is. As he walked down a familiar street, he noticed a few tables set up on a lawn. Old clothes, children's toys, boxes with books, some kitchen stuff, a couple of dusty electronics. A yard sale. Normally he would just walk past. He didn't like looking at things he couldn't really afford. But this time something made him slow down. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was fate. He walked closer and looked around lazily. The prices were written on sticky notes. $1, $2, $5. Then, in the corner, almost hidden behind a box of random junk, he saw it, an old wooden desk. It wasn't pretty. The surface was scratched. One of the handles was missing. The wood had faded in places, but it looked solid, heavy, real. The kind of furniture that had lived a life before it ended up here. He imagined his laptop sitting on it instead of that ugly cardboard box, and for a second, felt like an upgrade, like a tiny step toward feeling like an adult who had real furniture. The woman running the yard sale noticed him looking. $20 for the desk, she said quickly. If you can take it today, you can have it. $20. He checked his wallet. He didn't have much, but he had enough. For a moment, he hesitated. He thought, this is stupid. I shouldn't spend money. I should save every dollar. But another thought followed. I'm tired of feeling like I live in a storage room. At least let me have a desk. So he nodded. I'll take it. He didn't know that with that simple sentence, he had just changed his entire future. Getting the desk home was a challenge. It was heavier than it looked. The kind of heavy that comes from solid wood and old craftsmanship. He moved slowly, step by step, taking breaks, sweating, but also feeling strangely proud. It wasn't a new car. It wasn't a big house, but it was something he chose for himself. When he finally got it into his room, he placed it next to the window. The weak sunlight fell across the scratched surface, revealing tiny dents, small marks, the ghosts of objects that had once stood there. Cup here, a stack of papers there. Years of someone else's life. Michael grabbed a cloth and began to clean. He wiped away dust, picked off an old sticker in the corner, brushed away cobwebs. The more he cleaned, the more he liked it. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. When he started checking the drawers, he noticed something odd. 4 of them slid out smoothly, empty, nothing special. But the bottom left drawer felt different, heavier, as if something was stuck behind it. He pulled it out fully and turned it over, trying to see what was wrong. That's when he noticed it. On the inside of the desk frame, behind where the drawer normally sat, there was a narrow gap. Not big, not obvious, just a thin, hidden space between 2 wooden panels. His heart gave a small, sharp beat. No way, he thought. Is this a hidden compartment? He reached in slowly, feeling around with his fingers. First, nothing, just wood, dust, old air. And then, he touched something, thin, flat, like paper. He carefully gripped it and pulled it out. It was a dusty, yellowed envelope, sealed, old. No name, no writing, no clue what was inside. He stared at it for a long moment. Felt like something from a movie. A hidden envelope, inside a hidden compartment, inside a random desk he had just bought for $20. He laughed nervously. This is crazy, he whispered to himself. It's probably nothing. Old photos, some receipts, whatever. But his hands were already tearing the top open. Inside the envelope was one single sheet of paper. Thick, high quality. The kind of paper you only use for something important. He unfolded it carefully. His eyes took a second to adjust to the faded ink, the old-fashioned font, the official-looking stamps. At the top, in bold letters, it said, Common Stock Certificate. Below that was the name of a company, Harrington Technologies Incorporated. He had never heard of it. His eyes dropped to the center of the document. There, in neat print, was the line, This certifies that the bearer is the owner of 1,642 fully paid and non-assessable shares of common stock. He blinked. Read it again and again. Then he looked for a date. Near the bottom, in ink that had slightly faded. Issued on March 14, 1989. The certificate was older than he was. First, it didn't fully sink in. He had never owned stocks. He didn't really understand how they worked. Part of him wanted to throw the paper away and assume it was some old, useless relic. But something inside him said no. He sat down at his laptop, placed the certificate gently on the desk, and typed into the search bar, Harrington Technologies stock. First, nothing seemed special. A few old references, technical articles, some forgotten news. Then he found it. A line in an old financial report. An article from years ago. Harrington Technologies acquired by Luckfield Systems in 2011 for $127 per share. He felt his heartbeat in his ears. He stared at the words, then slowly turned to look at the certificate beside his laptop. 1,642 shares. He opened the calculator app with shaking fingers. 1,642 times 127 is equal to 208,534. $208,534. His stomach twisted. His hands went cold. No, this can't be real. He checked again. New searches, different sources. Everything said the same thing. The company had been real. The acquisition had been real. The price per share had been real, which meant this old piece of paper he was holding could represent a ridiculous amount of money, or nothing at all. Maybe it was already claimed. Maybe it was void. Maybe there were rules he didn't know. He flipped the certificate over, looking for a name. Nothing. No printed owner. No address. No contact information. Just a certificate number, some signatures, and the brokerage name in small letters at the bottom. He swallowed hard. There was only one way to find out. He dialed the number of the brokerage listed on the document. His hand shook so much he almost dropped the phone. After a few rings, a calm voice answered. "Thank you for calling Harrington Brokerage. This is Valerie speaking. How may I assist you today?" He hesitated. "Hi, I found an old stock certificate, and I just wanted to check if it's real, or if it's worth anything at all." "Of course," she replied politely. "May I have the certificate number?" He read the long sequence of letters and digits from the paper in front of him. Then there was silence. Not the casual kind. The heavy, loaded kind. He heard typing. Pages flipping. More typing. Seconds felt like minutes. "Sir," she finally said, "may I place you on a brief hold while I check our archives?" "Why, yes," he managed. The hold music felt endless. His thoughts spiraled. "It's fake. It's canceled. Someone already used it. They're gonna tell me I have nothing." And still, a tiny piece of hope burned quietly in his chest. When Valerie came back, her tone had changed. "Thank you for holding, sir. I've located the certificate in our system." He stopped breathing. "This certificate is authentic," she continued. "It was issued in 1989 and converted during the acquisition by Luckfield Systems." He swallowed. "So, does that mean it still exists? I mean, does it still have value?" "There was a cash conversion as part of the merger," she explained. "The original shares were converted into a cash equivalent. Because the certificate was never surrendered or reported lost, it appears that the funds were never claimed." Michael's heart was racing now. "And since you are in possession of the physical certificate," she added, "you are considered the legal holder, provided there is no competing claim." The room started to spin. He pressed his hand against his forehead. I don't understand. How much is it worth now?" More typing. Then she said it clearly, slowly. "After adjustments and accrued interest, the amount attached to this certificate is $216,450.28. $216,450.28. He repeated the number in his head. 216,000. From a desk he bought for 20. He didn't cry on the phone. He didn't scream. He just whispered, "Is this real?" "I assure you, sir," she replied gently. "It is very real." When he hung up, the silence in his room felt different. Same walls, same bed, same small window, but something invisible had shifted. On the desk in front of him lay the certificate, the proof that his life had just split into a before and an after. Before that call, he was broke, anxious, constantly worried. After that call, he was technically wealthy, not a billionaire, not never work again rich, but rich enough to finally breathe, to pay every debt, to start over. And yet, the emotions didn't come all at once. No fireworks, no dramatic music, just waves. First came shock, then disbelief, then a deep, powerful relief that made his whole body feel heavy. He sat still for what felt like hours. Every now and then, he looked at the certificate, just to make sure it hadn't vanished. He thought about all the nights he had gone to bed hungry, all the times he had lied to friends, saying he was busy, when in reality he couldn't afford to go out. All the small humiliations, all the quiet fears. And now, because of a random walk, a random yard sale, and a random desk, everything had changed. The next day, He went to the brokerage office in person. The building was modern, made of glass and steel, the kind of place he would normally walk past and assume it belonged to a world he wasn't part of. He walked in clutching the envelope, feeling like at any second someone would stop him and say, "Sorry, this is a mistake." But no one did. The receptionist took the certificate, checked the number, and smiled politely. "Someone will be with you shortly, Mr. Andrews." Mr. Andrews. He wasn't used to hearing his name like that. Formal, respectful. He sat in the waiting area, watching people in suits walk past him. For once, he didn't feel envy. He didn't feel small. He just felt suspended between two lives. A man in a dark suit finally approached him. "Mr. Andrews? My name is Daniel. Please, come with me." They sat in a quiet office with large windows. Daniel opened a folder, glanced at the documents, and said, "Well, first of all, congratulations. Everything has been verified. This certificate is valid, and the funds are available to be released." Michael nodded slowly, like he was underwater. "We'll need you to sign a few forms." Daniel continued, "And then the money will be transferred to your bank account within 3 to 5 business days." He slid a paper across the desk. On it, in clear printed numbers, $216,450. 28. Michael stared at it. The number looked unreal, like something from someone else's life. His throat tightened. His eyes began to sting. He looked up at Daniel, who gave him a small, understanding smile. "This kind of thing doesn't happen often," Daniel said. "But when it does, it tends to happen to people who really need it." Michael didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded. He signed the documents, with hands that were still trembling. 3 days later, his phone buzzed with a notification. He was sitting on his bed, the same old bed, wearing the same old t-shirt. He opened the banking app. For a second, the screen didn't register in his brain. Then he saw it. Current balance, plus $216,450. 28. He didn't scream. He didn't jump up and down. He just sat there silently, holding the phone in both hands, feeling his heart pound against his ribs. This was no longer a piece of paper on the desk. No longer a maybe. No longer a dream. It was real. Numbers in his account. Money that actually belonged to him. He closed his eyes. A single tear rolled down his face. Not the dramatic, cinematic tear of a movie character. A quiet tear. The kind that comes from, finally, not being afraid of tomorrow. Chapter 10. What he did with it. He didn't run out and buy a sports car. He didn't book a first-class flight. He didn't go on a shopping spree. The first thing he did was pay off every debt he had. Credit card, overdue bills, small loans, gone. Then he called his mom. He didn't tell her the full amount. He knew she would worry, wouldn't understand. But he told her he could help with her rent, with her medical bills, with the things she never asked for, but always needed. She cried on the phone, from gratitude, from relief. After that, he spoke to a financial advisor, not a friend, not some guy from the internet, a real professional. They made a plan. He would keep a small portion of the money for immediate needs and a little bit of joy, a better laptop, proper chair, some clothes that weren't falling apart. The rest would be invested carefully, not in get-rich-quick schemes, but in stable, boring, reliable things that would grow quietly over time. The $20 desk didn't just give him a miracle. It gave him time, options, freedom. So what does this story really mean? Is it just a rare, lucky coincidence? A one-in-a-million accident? In one sense, yes. Not everyone is going to find a hidden fortune inside an old piece of furniture. But there's a deeper truth here. Life can change in ways you never see coming. You can be at your lowest point, convinced that nothing good ever happens to you, that the world is closed, that luck belongs to other people. And then, on an ordinary day, on an ordinary street, you decide to stop at an ordinary yard sale, and everything shifts. Not because you planned it, not because you deserved it more than anyone else, but because life is not a straight, predictable line. It's messy, unfair, chaotic, but sometimes, in the middle of all that chaos, quietly hides a gift, a chance, a door, a hidden compartment, with your name written on it, in a language only destiny understands. This was the story of a young man who bought a desk for $20 and discovered a fortune hidden inside. If you want to hear more stories like this, true stories about unexpected success, about ordinary people whose lives changed in a single moment, about luck, chance, destiny, and second chances, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications, because somewhere out there, another story like this is already happening, and maybe one day, I'll be telling yours.